Hey everyone, how's it going? Delrith here, bringing you another rapid fire review, this time for the game Nioh 2. Nioh 2 is an action role-playing game developed by Team Ninja and is a sequel to Nioh, which came out I believe in 2017 on the PlayStation 4 as well. For anyone who isn't familiar with what Nioh is in general, it's a fantasy take on feudal Japan involving both heaven and hell, yin and yang, with your main goal being to slay evil spirits known as yokai who have invaded the world of man and are causing a ton of chaos. While doing this, you'll passively gain experience to put into various stat points and skills, with combat being fast-paced and arcadey, sort of like a Ninja Gaiden. Now, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I really enjoyed Nioh 1 for what it was. I enjoyed the story, and I really liked William as a character, and I genuinely loved the whole universe they portrayed with the mix between magic and Japanese demons and giant swords to kick their asses. I enjoyed the game so much that I have no shame in saying that this was my most anticipated game of the year, and honestly the only game I got really hyped about, generally something I try to avoid given releases the past year or so, but I really just couldn't help it and I was super eager to dive right in. First things first, Nioh 2 is graphically almost identical to the previous game, including a massive amount of reused assets, but it's got fancier lighting and water and character models. It's like they took a building and gave it a facelift, with all the nice decorations and bells and whistles being tossed on to give it appearance of being brand new. Hey, I remember this level, they just recycled it. Now, this isn't a bad thing in the slightest. I'm a general believer in not trying to fix something that isn't broken, and with this just being a graphical improvement to something I'd already liked, a solid foundation, I can't complain. The new yokai models they added are all quite unique and feature some of the best monster animations I've ever seen in a game like this, even putting Dark Souls animations to shame, and the particle effects and ability visuals are all top notch for what you should get on the PlayStation 4's hardware. Characters and weapons are all extremely high quality and high resolution to boot, with the game even offering you the ability on the PS4 Pro to choose between cinematic high resolution textures or performance, although it felt like I was getting 60 FPS regardless of which option I chose. You also get the ability to customize and create your own character from the start, and it's pretty damn elaborate, so I like that, and honestly there's nothing to complain about with the creator. You can make some pretty sexy looks. The UI is the same for the most part as it was in Nioh 1, with everything being familiar and in the same spots as the previous title, with extra features being added into their respective places like soul tuning in the shrine. It was all extremely easy for me to pick up and figure out, especially given the fact that I had played the previous title. Audio is definitely improved in Nioh 2, with everything being extremely high quality and very crisp and clear. The soundtrack is great, with each boss having their own theme and the general background OST having some bangers that even pick up on tempo and slow down based on whether or not you're in combat. It's nice to see a game that takes the concept of timing enemies and their actions to the music, and Nioh 2 loosely does that, with a few of the fights almost ending up spot on to the actual fight choreography. In a technical sense, Nioh 2 ran perfectly fine. I encountered absolutely zero errors or issues, with even multiplayer connectivity being perfect and the latency between countries far away still being solid. For a lot of the time I played the game, probably about 90% or so of my playthrough was in multiplayer, and it never had a disconnect, crash, or lag of any sort. Even when my buddy Biscuits, who was in Israel, was playing with us, it was just fine, and that's a huge improvement over the original game's netcode. There were also no texture glitches, crashes, or save issues to speak of, something nice to say on launch day, and to my knowledge there were no major exploits or game-breaking things found early on, so props to Team Ninja for polishing it in that regard. The story, though, of Nioh 2 is what I would call the game's first weak point, and I genuinely have to say that I had absolutely no idea what the hell was going on for vast tracts of my playtime. It's a chicken. Also, he looks a lot like that guy that was fighting Sekiro. Now he doesn't. You start off finding out that you're a half demon, half man person running into a man with a spirit monkey who says, "Hey, let's go work for Nobunaga." And that's pretty much all the guidance you get. Random characters pop in and out with absolutely no rhyme or reason, and you seem to absolutely lack all personal motivation or investment as a character to explain why you are where you are. Things just sort of happen non-stop in the first 3/4 of the game, and at no point did I feel any connection to the characters or care about anyone else that I met on the story. There were times while I was playing where people I've never seen or heard of just, appeared in cutscenes, did something, and then kind of funnily enough died, and it left me even more confused. A great example of something like this is the whole Nobunaga arc. You're fighting with him to win a battle for some reason, and then you win, and then 5 seconds later, everything is on fire and everyone's dying, and then he just kills himself with no effort to escape. Like, seriously, span of 5 seconds, everything just spontaneously exploded and everyone died with absolutely no chance to leave up to those events or figure out the logic applied to them in any way whatsoever. Why was Nobunaga betrayed? Like, what happened? Nothing was explained. We literally just conquered a place and everyone was happy and he was like, yeah, good job. And now he's fucking, everything's on fire. I don't understand. The whole game is like this up until the very end where things kind of come together thanks to the story tying into the first game. But it just could have been so much better. Now, don't get me wrong, Nioh 1's story isn't the most immersive or the best told narrative in the world, but William was genuinely likable and he had the all-important carrot on a stick to explain why he was where he was. See, he went to Japan to chase some douchebag named Kelly who stole his spirit girl waifu, and so in the course of chasing Kelly, he was dragged into multiple scenarios and everything tied into that. In Nioh 2, however, you're just some fucking demon bro going around murdering dudes and sucking the spirits out of everyone like some sort of ghost vacuum, and that's your entire motivation, and it could have just been so much more. At least the cutscenes, although confusing, were all very, very well done and great to watch. I just wish I understood what was going on. Overall, the story itself, counting side missions, will span about 40 or so hours, and that's if you're not getting your ass kicked, with the New Game Plus mode adding more stuff if you haven't seen before later on once you've done everything there is to do in the standard mode. Combat is pretty much identical to the first Nioh. It's a fast-paced hack and slash with low, medium, and high stances, each featuring a different bonus for you to use during specific situations. That's a mouthful. Low stance is a fast-paced but very light impact stance, with your dodges almost being immediate and using almost no stamina. Mid is the best of both worlds. It's relatively quick and will break guards faster, with high being the big stamina use, but every swing hits like a truck. Enemies will of course have stamina, just like you, or ki in this case, that you can wear down through attacking, with the execution always being available when you break their guard. This applies to both yokai and human enemies alike, allowing you to figure out different strategies and deduce the weaknesses of each enemy type, for the optimal path to execution. There are quite a few weapons that have carried over from the previous games, things like the Odachi DLC, the Kusarigama, the Katana, and so on and so forth, and they're joined by the dual hatchets and the switchglaives, really, and new in this game, really adding to the arsenal and capabilities of your character as you're plowing through the story. Each weapon is entirely unique in its own right and requires different stats to be truly effective, with every weapon having different priorities on what you want to master. The two-handed axe, for example, scales mostly off of stamina, getting stronger and gaining more damage the more points you put into stamina. Weapons, while you use them, will gain proficiency on top of everything else, which awards skill points with a massive skill tree for each weapon being available and further allowing you to customize how you fight and what you do in combat. This is even further expanded upon by skill nodes that unlock skill customizations for that specific skill of that weapon, allowing you to do things like convert some abilities to fire, water, ice, or to do more damage with them, maybe even with negatives for the positives that you get, really just giving almost no limit to what you could do with your builds. Magic and ninjutsu are also back in Nioh 2, each with their own skill trees as well, with magic now including things like lightning nukes and various assortment of new buffs, and ninjutsu being expanded to have a bunch of different throwing weapons, bombs, traps, you name it. Both of those are extremely powerful in their own rights and just added more flair to the game, and the amount of hybrid builds you can do between them all is insane. I think you can grab a bit of everything too, which is nice, or hard focus on one thing. It's just entirely up to you. Experience, of course, is gained through killing enemies and consuming Enrita crystals, just like the previous title, with various different uses for it, but it's primarily just used for leveling up. There's really been no change at all to the Enrita system in Nioh 2, and I'm glad for it. I like more of the same, and this just expands on your base options in general from the previous game. Enemy yokai now drop soul cores for you to pick up, with these cores each offering different stat bonuses to your spirits when you shove them in there. They also give you the ability of said yokai you killed when you use your yokai gauge meter in combat. These spirit cores also include bosses, allowing you to do some really neat abilities, and overall, it's just an awesome additive to an already great system. Personally, I think it's fantastic that you're actually able to absorb the power of bosses and utilize them against foes. It's something not a lot of games do these days. It's worth mentioning at this point that the living weapon has been completely replaced with a yokai shift mode based on your chosen spirit, with the types being feral, brute, and phantom. I gotta say though that in every instance that I tried, and even intentionally trying to power up the mode, it just plain outright sucks. And it's but a mere shadow of what the living weapon was, and just generally feels underwhelming to use. It lets you get a few attacks and then shuts off, or get hit a couple of times and not take damage but immediately lose the shift, and I wish it was better, as it's just totally lackluster right now. You actually struggle to find times where it's better to use your yokai mode compared to just swinging your weapon about, as you generally do more damage outside of it, and I hope they patch it in the future to make it more effective. Maybe there's some ridiculous cheese build I don't know about, but right now, from everything I tried, it's just bad. Crafting and upscaling and soul matching and all that exists, with a lot of new options in the blacksmith to support an already great system. You can still mix and match dozens of different sets to get all sorts of fun bonuses, and even scale gear up to your level if you desire so, if you just get those perfect stat rolls and you don't want to waste your time trying all over again to get them again. You've also got tempering, which allows you to change rolls and use materials to get even better rolls on your weapons, so that's awesome, with remodeling now being a thing and even allowing you to change the stat weights to add even more damage onto weapons based on the skills that you want to scale. I could go on, but you get it. The smith is great and allows lots more customization on top of customization. And oh yeah, they have a kick-ass refashion option that allows you to change appearances of gear, keeping you beautiful even if your base set is ugly. The tea house was returned as well, with the clan wars being a thing too, with each clan offering similar bonuses to what they did in the previous Nioh, and encouraging players to change their clan based on what build they're going for at a time. It'll also be where you can get character skins if you wanted to replace your whole character model, just like prior, even allowing you to be William from the first game if you wanted, just through getting enough honor from killing revenants. What else was there? Oh yeah, multiplayer is pretty sick, although it has massive flaws. But either way, I'm glad that they've expanded the Torii Gate and improved connectivity. Currently, my biggest complaint with multiplayer is that the scaling is absolutely overtuned, with enemies getting like 5 or 6 times more HP if you have 3 people, making their stamina absolutely impossible to break, and some moves just straight up instant kill you. Couple that with the fact that, upsettingly, checkpoints don't matter if you're on an expedition with a friend, and you can, at times, have a horribly frustrating experience, with deaths resulting in you losing all Amrita, progress, and having to start over from the very beginning of the mission, bosses and all. Shrines aren't checkpoints in multiplayer. No, they're not. They're not. The shrines in multiplayer, you have no checkpoints. That's why it's a lot more difficult in a lot of ways. Because you just basically, if one of you gets caught out somewhere and falls down where someone else can't get you, the match is over. You gotta start over. This is even more angering from the fact that some missions are boss gauntlets, with some bosses being total bullshit, so just keep that in mind if you're planning on playing with friends, as it can be really, really rough. You do have the option, though, of just summoning people temporarily in, like the first game, which is nice, but the expedition mode could have just been a lot better. New Game Plus mode comes back too, and it allows you to farm the best items in the game and play through it once more. Nothing to brag about, but, you know, it's there. So there is an in-game with special sets and items only obtainable in the second playthrough. Overall, though, I gotta say that Nioh 2 is a pretty damn good improvement over the first game. Even though the story completely sucked and made no sense, I was just totally satisfied with my experience. It was fun to play through for sure, and the customization was wild with the game being beautiful, and I got to kill a ton of demons in the process. The final score I'm giving Nioh 2 is a solid 8 out of 10, with the potential for it to go higher in the future with DLC, and I just wish that the story made more sense, and I really can't say that enough, as thinking about it now, I still can't figure out what the hell was going on. And you know what? Fix the multiplayer too. That'd bring it up. It's just gonna need more patches and DLC in the future. I can't say though that I suggest anyone who was a fan of the first game to go and pick up Nioh 2. It's rad and definitely worth the price tag, and it's PS4 exclusive, so hey, you know, it's gonna get supported for a while. It'll be coming to PC, I'm sure, in the next year or two, probably 2 years at the most. If you want to wait, feel free. But until then, I'm going to be pushing the New Game Plus 2 and Plus 3 and Plus 4 and so on, as it's just a lot of fun. Anyway, that's going to be it for this rapid fire. If you liked it, do me a solid and hit that like button and subscribe. And if you're already subscribed, ring the bell to get notifications on new videos in the future. Oh yeah, and if you like the rapid fire reviews or would like to see when I'm doing them live on Twitch, you can head over to my Twitter at AJSADelrith and give me a follow. I'd appreciate it, like honestly. Until the next video, this is Delrith, and I'll be seeing ya.